opening question, in addition to introducing yourself, is what's lingering with you with the film and your connection to the film, and maybe the first time you witnessed or experienced this film. And this is 25 years that this film has been with us now, and it feels like not much has changed. And this is really pulls the heartstrings for me personally in a lot of ways. Mums, one of the actors in the film, from the Mau Mau, was one of my teachers. And he's no longer with us. And it's just a profound blessing to be able to be in a place and work in a space where I could see his presence on screen for me. But you know, who you are and first time you experienced this film and what's lingering with you.
Well, I gotta go first. Hey.
Okay.
All right, let me get my teacher voice back. Hi, I am Carla Aaron-Lopez. I am an artist, a curator, and an educator. Some people in the community know me by King Carla. My students call me Miss Lopez, but today I'm speaking the same as the individual that watched it 25 years ago. And watching it, what stays with me is R.I.P. Mums, R.I.P. Paul Mooney, R.I.P. Thomas Jefferson Byrd, because if this was your first time watching it, a lot of y'all didn't pick up on how many greats were in the movie across the board. Like before we even get into content, just how many greats, heavyweights, champions that were in this movie and understood fully the intention behind the story.
Hi everybody, my name is Randi Gil-Sadler. I'm a professor of Africana Studies at Davidson College. And I think the first time I saw this movie was probably about 10 years ago. And I had not seen it since until like rewatched it in preparation for this. And I think the thing that lingers with me, kind of in connection to the theme of this week about cinema of despair, how so many of the characters in this film ran out of options, and a certain kind of structural violence that they were asked to participate in, they ended up inflicted on each other. And I think that's the thing that lingers with me is how do we redirect the kind of righteous anger about a particular kind of colonization of aesthetics back to the actual perpetrators and not each other.
Here? Hey, okay. Hey, my name's Simon something. I am from the west side of Charlotte, and I'm a DJ and producer and occasional event curator. Yeah, so like, you know, when I first saw this movie, I was like super young. My dad had like a bad habit of like playing movies I probably should have been seeing as a child, when I was a child. And, you know, like, you know, I watched it again a few weeks ago just to prepare for tonight. It's like a very interesting feeling, like, you know, watching something growing up that you didn't really completely understand, and then like, you know, growing older as an adult, and especially being in the entertainment industry, and you're just like very much like understanding some of the themes and just issues that the characters in the film are dealing with. I think like one of the bigger things about the movie that stuck with me truly is just, you know, for all the different issues that the characters are going through, like none of them really found solutions to those problems. You know, whether it was like the issue of like creating a show that would be a hit to, you know, actually finding like stable income or like boosting a career, like none of those characters who like, none of them really like found the destination that they were like really looking for as the movie started.
Yeah, I'm just curiosity, like, for who in this room, in this space, if you comfortable doing, you know, was this your first time seeing this film? It's like the vast majority in here. You know, thank you for that. You know, Simon, I'll start with you with this question. This is, if you can get your hands on the soundtrack, I want to encourage that. This is the only soundtrack we have in the universe where we have both Stevie Wonder and Prince on the same soundtrack. You know, there's something mesmerizing about that. You know, you get Prince and Stevie Wonder on the soundtrack, and the groundedness of what they've done with their journey and career throughout, you know, the decades. And, you know, for you, where is that line between, you know, your integrity and the work and the events that you're curating and placating to any system? where, what is your metrics or rubrics for yourself to say, like, this is not a line I'm gonna cross?
Right, yeah, I mean, like, that's definitely a challenging thing. It's something that comes up in conversation a lot between myself and a lot of the artists that I collaborate with on just like what things are okay in the community, different communities that we represent, things that we represent together. And just far as like just myself personally, like it's all about feeling. Especially like at this point in my life, I'm like thankful to be able to like say no to things. I've definitely, just had times where like it was very hard or challenging to like turn down work that didn't really resonate with me or feel like a healthy thing for me to be involved in. So I think it is just like, more about personal choice than anything. Like there's no, I guess, like guideline per se as far as what is okay to be involved with artistically or creatively. I do think more than anything else we're in like a very interesting time in this country where like there's so many factors, just economical and cultural, like make it very hard to toe that line for artists. As far as what is, as broad of a word as it is, what's right? Like as a black artist, as a woman artist, as a queer artist, as whatever category a person falls into, like what for them is right or not. But I like to think that like as long as you're able to like look yourself, in the mirror and like, be happy with who you are while like, growing as an individual, growing as an artist, that's what really matters the most.
And Randy, this next question is for you, and it's similar to what you opened up with sharing and saying, like, this is a film where, if you also get a chance to get your hands on, not that a lot of people have DVDs now, but like physical media should be coming back, I hope. But if you can get your hand on a DVD version of this and listen to Spike Lee's commentary, the commentary track on this is one of the most mesmerizing things, and he's very emphatic about his indictment on certain individuals. So could you say more about like your opening statements about like how do we hold accountability for those that, these institutions that sit in opposition, but then we turn, and I'm specifically talking about our community, I'm not talking about everyone. It's easy to look at this and say, wow, they turn inward on each other. Could you say more about, your reflection or thoughts there?
Yeah, so I think what I think is interesting about this film is that in some ways we kind of get a hierarchy. We kind of get the artist, we get like the agent, we get the writer, and then we get the person in charge of the company. But then when it comes to the actual kind of network heads, they're completely like absent, right? They're mentioned, but their physical presence is never explicitly seen, or we hear broadly advertisers, but we never know who's actually kind of putting money into the show circulating. So in that way, I think thinking about where to actually direct anger, I think it's important to develop structural analysis, right? So how do we actually think about structures like capitalism or anti-blackness and how they actually trickle down into our interpersonal interactions, but we need to attack them on a structural level. I do think one of the other things that the film does well is show how dangerous a certain kind of rugged individuality is. So the way that Delacroix is like, nobody should be able to stop me as an artist. So there's no actual commitment to collectivity at all. It's just whatever you should be able to do as an individual. And that's actually a very dangerous bourgeois capitalistic logic. And so when I say the violence turns on each other, I'm not saying that we should not have intra-racial critique of art, because that was also what Delacroix was saying, like, why does black art have to be critiqued, right? And critique is just a sign of intelligence. It just means I'm engaging critically. And critique has historically been an art. So I think in this film, what's interesting to me is that without a certain kind of explicit structure, or we don't see the characters organizing and say, hey, how do we take down this actual network? Or hey, how do we actually take down the investors and name them? I think it becomes easier to make individual critiques, but not to say that those characters didn't warrant critique.
Yeah, thank you for that. And Carla, please take this where you see fit. I also want to give you your flowers on this question and this statement. In our community, in our community, when the appropriation that we see of Michael Rappaport, We see his office and the iconography that's in his office. We see his lingo and what we've been able to nurture together, and I want to give you your flowers on this, is holding others accountable for infiltrating our spaces at times, and infiltrating our culture in a way that does not give celebration or honor to the legacy of individuals that had to put in a labor and sacrifice. Why? It's hard to even articulate this question, but like, why do that work? Why do the work of holding those spaces accountable when it could be taxing on on you? Like, we see Sloan holding Delacroix accountable eventually, but it seems more taxing on her than anything. And I've often wondered that with you, like when we're holding spaces accountable and you know it's taxing, why do it? Like, why continue to be the Sloan of the space, if that makes sense?
Because I ain't Sloan, I'm a villain. It hurt Sloan as to where I receive joy. And I think that if you wrong, you wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's wrong to take advantage of an individual and then sell the product back to them. That is like super fucking wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, for the light of it all, the crack epidemic. For those who were alive, they saw the damages, but now you pay money to watch movies about the catastrophes of those damages. You create television shows about a literal destruction of an entire neighborhood. Like, just tell me you've never lived a life. You know what I'm saying? So when you create something that has damaged a community, and then you sell it back in a different shiny package to that community, oh no, let's burn this motherfucker down and give it to the people. It's like, my kids are not, for me, they're not ghetto. Are they hood? Yeah, they live in a neighborhood. They do kid things. But to have an expectation that I'm going to continue the adultification of Black children, no, I'd rather you get on my nerves and be a child. But what we're not gonna do is allow you to disrespect yourself. You can speak whatever language you want to speak, but what I will not allow you to do is disrespect yourself.
I want to open it up for like questions, comments, thoughts, concerns that you want to pose to any of the panelists. I have other thoughts and questions that I could throw out to them, but I also want to respect your time. I want to respect the space. So anyone with a question you want to throw out to the panelists, or a thought or statement you want to throw out?
To the left.
I'll come here and then I'll come there.
Thank you for your comment, because I was a New Jack City fan, and to listen to you say what you said, they repackaged the self-destruction of our community and sold it back to us as a movie. And that was my Friday night movie in the 80s when I came home from work to depress. So to hear from your vantage point, I'm somewhat offended with myself as a person that I accepted and bought the bootleg and watched it faithfully.
I feel like you were being like absolutely on point as a Black American. You bought a bootleg. You know, but it's like I can't, the only way I can come to that point is when people are so concerned about the music kids are listening to. And I just say flat out, like, let's be fucking for real. We've been listening to crack rack for 40 years. Mm-hmm. Everybody doesn't become a drug dealer, okay? On a Friday night, hey, don't hate me. On a Friday night, you drop a Jeezy song, I'm jamming. I'm really jamming. But for me to live across the street from Hornets Nest Park, Trinity Park, we talking early 90s, to be able to walk down, canoodle for the catfish, look and find watermelon that some old Black person planted and left behind, and then to wake up the next day and learn you walking in gang territory, that's a destruction of a community.
My question was, did y'all notice how MC Search dropped the one drop rule at the end of the movie? And how important is that to y'all? Like, do you think that was like an Easter egg? What do you think about the one drop rule? Because I often think all white people ain't white and all Black folks ain't Black. I feel like we're so far from our ancient heritage that the one drop rule applies on both ends.
So one of the things I'll say, I think for me, we're often taught that like race is biological, and I don't agree that like race is biological anymore, right? I think that phenotype is part of race, but race is really about a hierarchy of how life is valued, right? And so when you are racialized as Black, it's not even necessarily saying something about your blood or your heritage or where you're from. Part of what it's also saying is about how in a kind of colonial structure your life is devalued, right? There's a way that you come at the bottom. I thought that I don't know, I thought the Why You Didn't Kill Me, I don't know, I thought like Spike was already getting on my nerves at that point. I was like, but I think part of, you know, what that was doing, and particularly with the Mau Mau group, I think there's also a critique too about what it means to only be interested in like revolutionary aesthetics, right? When I'm only interested in saying the right thing or blackly black talk, but I actually don't have a real kind of political analysis. That scene is more about how you turn the actual murder of Black people into your attention to yourself, and you're actually completely desensitized to the murder of Black people around you, even people you consider comrades, right? So I looked at it as, just a way that Spike was kind of making a satire of a certain kind of bastardization of revolutionary politics around race.
Anyone else in this space? Oh, Simon, go ahead.
Oh, just kind of add on to that. Both like the one drop part of it all, like, you know, Serge had like just an understanding. He had an understanding that there was like a difference with him as a person, but you know, he felt like there's a certain amount of inclusion or a certain voice or whatever the case is, a belonging that he had to something, regardless of how small that may be. I can't really say funny, you know, it's interesting movie. It's a very dark movie, but you know, one of, I guess, like my favorite scenes in the movie is when Pierre is talking to that team of white writers, because they all have that understanding that what they're doing is wrong, that they shouldn't be there. But all it takes is just like a few words from him and just a little bit of excitement for them to just completely forget about that and become excited about something that they know they shouldn't be a part of. They know that their voice shouldn't be the one that's, you know, being heard, you know. And like it's kind of maybe from like the opposite perspective where like they understand their whiteness isn't what's needed, but yeah, you know, like it's just like the understanding that those characters sometimes have about their actions, and sometimes they step over the same boundaries that they understand should be in place.
And 25 years later, you know, contextually, what's really changed?
I mean, we've learned that Michael Rappaport was just playing as himself, you know. So.
Also, if you get your hands on the DVD, at the end of it, there are more commercials. It's not just Tommy Hilfiger and, you know, like, you know, whatever there are more commercials at the end of the track.
I think for me, 25 years later, I think, because this is something that's been sitting on my mind since I'm knowing I was going to have this conversation, is that, okay, so that might have been that very beginning point of anyone ever having a thought to live stream a death on the internet, as to where in today's context, you can replay Black deaths on a mainstream social media platform however many times you want to, as to where at that time, snuff films, you had to go like real deep into the internet. And this was still fucking dial-up. Like, I don't think Ethernet had even showed up yet. You know what I'm saying? But now you're so desensitized 25 years later at viewing Black deaths that it didn't even blow your mind that they were live streaming a death from a movie that was made 25 years ago. That blows my mind consistently as I watch the movie. Like, sit with that for a while and then think about how many times you have watched a Black person lose their life. So once upon a time, I had to dig deep into the internet or buy an actual videotape way back in the back of the porn store, right? But now I can just go on to, it's still not fucking X, it's Twitter. I can go on to Twitter and do a quick search, and then boom, I can replay that again and again. Fucking sick sad world, bro.
It is a quite prophetic film, you know, his prediction about this happening. I absolutely agree. I still want to open up the space if there's a thought,
have a thought because.
What's up, girl?
Hi. Yeah, I had a thought. The whole time I was watching it, it made me think about the writing room at that Kevin Hart roast. That's what I thought about.
You know what? Rewatching it is just my constant reminder that anything that's not specifically funded by Black hands, 9 times out of 10, the writing room is white. Like, look about how they talked about The Wire, right? So here we are, another drug-ass show based in Black neighborhoods. The destruction of drugs in that Black neighborhood wins all of these awards, right? It has its typical stereotypes. You got your crackheads, you got your drug dealers, then you got those moments where your heart's being fucking broken because the kids are doing the goddamn drugs too. Yet you don't want to experience the reality of teaching a child that is on drugs in your classroom because they're escaping the same reality these white writers are writing about, yet have never lived in that actual reality.
Please, go ahead.
I think one thing that I want to say that I think the film does a good job of, that I think we actually need more of today. I don't always want to assume that when people are showing negative stereotypes, it's because they're white. I think that's one of the things that the film does a good job of, right? Like, De La Croix is Black, you have Black parent, and you're also still trafficking in anti-Black stereotypes. So I think what also has to be part of the analysis, which I think the film does a solid job of, is class, right? Like, if you are a middle class, or you are an aspiring middle class Black person, you are interested in bourgeois values that are already antithetical to like working class Black life. Yeah. So I think it's important for us to also not just think because, okay, if you're Black, you're making progressive or productive art, right? And I think this is an ongoing conversation. I think for me, the way I see it is in, African American literature. Over the course of the 20th century, people like Langston Hughes and Richard Wright and Tony K. Bambara are asking this question: what actually constitutes Black art, right? And it can't just be, for them anyway, Black people making art. The art has to do a kind of political work, a liberatory kind of political work. And so I think it's important always to have analysis of race, but also to think very clearly about class, right? Like, if these are the type of images that produce wealth and you are pursuing wealth on a very individualistic basis, whether you're Black or not, or white or not, you will also traffic in those same things, which is, I also think, what Kevin Hart's issue is, right? You're constantly chasing individual wealth, and then you narrate your individual success as community success. But you have to traffic in anti-Blackness to do it. So I want us to also always not just think about the race of people in the room, but what are the class aspirations and desires? Because that's what animates the taste and the kind of desire for certain images.
Ooh, so I got a question for y'all. So what did y'all think of the artwork in the movie?
I mean, so for just one thing that was on my mind when I had rewatched it a few weeks ago, you talk about just how prophetic that film was. Or just when they were pitching the show to Michael Rappaport's character, first thing on my mind was damn, Bobby Shmurda was dancing on that table just a few years ago. There's just so many things that happened in that film, and that Kevin Hart, situation being another thing of it. Yeah, the actual artistry of the movie.
I mean the paintings.
Oh, I mean, it's just as far as the minstrel side of it and everything of that nature.
The artist's name is Michael Ray Charles, and he has revisited, that is a collection of his earliest works that we saw in the movie. Yeah. And he chose to revisit the Sambos, the Pickaninnies, and then flip, distort, and twist them in very uncomfortable ways, to where the artwork itself was helping to move the story all the way down to the end,
Yeah. It's, even when there's times where certain artists are using that imagery as a way of both telling our story and as well as pushing against certain narratives, just for like the household I grew up in, like my parents were just very adamant about me just understanding our history, you know. So it's hard for me to like see like, you know, the somber images and like not have any, you know, just like an immediate negative reaction to it, you know, or like, you know, anything with like, you know, just like anything like mammy related or just anything of that nature did not hit me. But like that's the point of it, you know. That's why Spike put it in the movie. You know.
And what about him dancing? Like, say
Yeah.
how his dancing from the beginning to, except for when he no longer wanted to play in blackface, like, it disintegrated down into shucking and jiving.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like also helping coast the story along.
I respond to the art in some regards. I think that, you know, Spike Lee personally for me did a brilliant job of creating this dialogue between the performance art, the visual art, the sound art aesthetic. The underlaying, when you go back and watch some of the scenes, the underlaying of the sound aesthetic of what is being played in some of those scenes are in, they conflate with what we visually see. And I think that's brilliantly done. And I do agree with you about the dancing, the underlaying and the dismantling of it each time, to the point even where how he looks visually when he's doing that dance at the end. The fragmentation of his physical body when he's tap dancing, I think plays brilliantly. I can't name another film where I feel like the performance art in the film, dance specifically, and the visual, the art and the soundscape creates this type of dialogue that is both affirming and challenging. Yeah. I saw a hand, yeah, and then we come here, here.
Hello. So I grew up Christian Lebanese, you know, and one of the things that I found hilarious and my dad found hilarious was that puppet comedian guy or whatever, you know, the silence I kill you. And, you know, it was really interesting, you know, looking back now because I found it hilarious. My dad still finds that stuff funny. And, you know, growing up now and learning more and more about the world, it's just like, it was like heartbreaking. It's like kind of heartbreaking to see my own dad, you know, find this sort of thing funny. And it was really interesting to me to see in the film, like, I was shocked when there was African Americans in you know, watching in the audience, wearing blackface, enjoying the show. I was like, what is this? And then it just clicked with me, and it's like, this is stuff I experience, you know, from my point of view as a Middle Eastern, and it's just like, it was such an impactful thing. I would just love to hear what you guys thought about that specifically, you know, having, like, you know, our brothers and sisters, like, enjoying this monstrosity.
I think I'll just like reiterate something I said earlier. I think it's important that like no racial identity, gender identity, sexuality identity is inherently radical. Like those are politics and that's a level of criticism that you have to develop like over time. So it's not to me super shocking that there would be black people laughing in the film, in part because the way American media and pop culture works, you're socialized to laugh at that. Regardless of if you're black or not. Like everyone is socialized to find that funny, to take enjoyment of that, right? When we think about, you know, minstrelsy and blackface just as an art form started in the 19th century, like that's how long it is, right? And it's been repackaged every time a certain kind of media technology updates. And so, again, I think it's important for us to not assume that we have or automatically are born with a certain kind of critical lens, or that our taste for certain art is inherently antithetical to a racist order, even if that racist order negatively affects us as well.
Yeah. Also, there's commodification. People, the American public, will buy anything blackface. And you see it all the time. You've seen it so much you don't even think about it no more. And that point was made in the movie when Paul Mooney was cracking jokes. The point has been proven again and again. You are going to disbelieve a black woman, you're going to tear down a black woman's body, but a white bitch can come out here and get lip fillers, she can get hips thrown on her, she can get a BBL, and all of a sudden, this is the most beautiful woman on earth. You know, like people love to pretend to be black. I don't like it when people pretend to be black. I love it when you're authentically you. That's really, really cool. But to act like someone who has always been made fun of since the birth of whatever you call this country, nah, friend, that's not it. It's not it. Now, when it comes to class, I'm still gonna harken back on what she's saying. When it comes to class, that is a different space. Because you can't tell some of the people from New Orleans that they're not from New Orleans and they have a black scent. You can't tell some of them people from Queens that they're not from Queens because they have a black scent. Majority of the participation that people do in America is based on black culture. How you interact with each other, how you speak with one another, how you catch on to slang very quickly. All of these things have been driven by black people. So of course a whole room full of people, including black people themselves, most of the times the ones that aren't aware of how deep black history goes, and it goes beyond the country, but it doesn't stop at fucking Egypt. You know what I'm saying? Most of those ones will be quick to put on a black face as well, because they have, and we've seen it in celebrities.
And just like far as like the class of it, like I feel like Junebug and Pierre like are on like polar opposite ends of like that. Like, just far as the class side of it, where like, Junebug's, getting drunk in small clubs because he's just so fed up and feels like, too prideful to like bow down to what's happening in Hollywood and like his disgust for Hollywood. Whereas his son is doing Pilates and like speaking with a, fake accent and like feels like his opinion on what's best for the Negro is like his way of fighting back against Hollywood. It's really just two different classes of black people who like feel animosity towards like the industry that they're a part of. Just in my opinion.
Hello, it's been a pleasure hearing this conversation, very insightful, very, engaging. But I wanted to ask about something stupid, but what's your opinion or the significance of the James Baldwin quote? And if you're aware, if you think that Spike Lee was aware of maybe some of Baldwin's essays in the past talking about what he's talking about in here, because I recently read Notes of a Native Son, and there is an essay where he's talking about black media and magazines and like critiquing them, but also understanding structurally like, hey, this is like people just trying to integrate into America, and what does America do? It divides and conquers, put people in boxes and be like, hey, in order to be American, you gotta be anti-black, you gotta be anti-Semite, you gotta be this and that. Like, so what's your thoughts on like the significance of that quote?
Yeah, I think Spike knows what he's doing in terms of that, and I think if I can just shout out like another James Baldwin thing, he has a book-long essay called The Devil Finds Work, which is his analysis of American cinema just in general. So he's analyzing films like The Exorcist. He also talks about how he was initially brought in to write on the original Malcolm X biopic, but kind of similar to this film, the writers wanted to really water down Malcolm's politics and really kind of focus on more of his kind of Detroit Red days. And Baldwin actually writes in The Devil Finds Work that he would not be a part of murdering Malcolm X again by participating in this film, right? So Baldwin is somebody who I think is really interested both as a literary figure but also as a film critic. And so, yeah, I think that is a very kind of specific nod, kind of like into the audience, like if you know, you know, but also a way to start another kind of conversation about a cultural figure who was also divested from Hollywood specifically in terms of thinking about American cinema.
And I want to respond to that as well. Spike was extremely emphatically aware of what he was doing and the significance of that quote. This is one of two of his films that is crafted backwards. He starts with the Baldwin quote and then does basically the dismantling of humanity going backwards. It starts with that. The other film, if anyone is curious, is Miracle at St. Anna. I'll take two more questions and then I want to give final thoughts and reflections for the panelists.
Yeah. And thank you all for being here. Appreciate it very much. Speaking of dismantling humanity, it seems like every movie I see nowadays, it just something harkens back to, Trump and all this nonsense. It could be the sheep detectives. It doesn't matter. But I mean, here, I just feel like the Mantan program is just an extended metaphor for this MAGA bullshit. I mean, because it just shows like how people they accept it, and then it gets more and more widespread, and it's just absolutely disgusting. It's just why we feel like nothing hasn't changed. And also, it's kind of interesting how if you look at the spectrum of how people kind of get corrupted, like Michael Rappaport. I mean, he did the Tribe Called Quest documentary, and I'm not going to take that away from him. But but he was just, he's become a latent version of himself in that character. So I don't know if y'all agree with that or not.
I don't spend time on Michael Rappaport. I'm just gonna say Trump is your newest avatar, and everything is still the same as it was 250 years ago. We just got better toys.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, MAGA is just like whiteface. It's just like, just the same way that like, blackface, a lot of those stereotypes are just taking the extremes of blackness and like pushing that to a certain audience. That's all MAGA's doing. Like they're pushing like the worst stereotypes you could think of when it comes to whiteness in America. And that's ripping people, that's grabbing people. Just the same way that like, Birth of a Nation had theaters filled, so.
Hello. This movie came out before I was born, and I only had heard like a little bit about it from certain movie essays that I'd watched beforehand, and I was very interested in like being able to see the movie, and I love seeing the movie on the silver screen because I feel like that's the best way to see the movies. But I was curious about like what the initial reaction during the time of when it came out, and then moving along that, if there was any, like what y'all saw or what the conversation that y'all had when the movie initially came out, and how y'all see it move throughout time now.
So from my understanding about this film, in terms of kind of how it did in the box office, it did terribly well.
You are correct.
And actually didn't turn a profit. And I think a lot of production companies are actually really scared to take this film on because of the content that it was covering. But then later, I want to say, and Dee, I know you'll correct me if I'm wrong, I think like in 2005 or so, that it did end up getting into the Library of Congress National Registry for films that are significant, and then kind of later became a kind of cult classic film in terms of like the reception of the film.
Shit, I was excited. Because really, since Malcolm X, the movie itself, that was the point where I was fully invested in understanding Black history, like not learning Black history as just a fact, like a school fact, right? Like a sense of understanding all around. So for me, yes, babe, it did do terrible. It's a movie about minstrel shows and blackface, you know what I'm saying? To be honest, I feel like a core memory just unlocked right now. Like, what's wild about Bamboozled is that it failed and it slowly became like a cult classic. And what's unlocking in my head right now is that when you said that year, 2005, that same year, Little Brother dropped The Minstrel Show, and that became like a pop culture phenomenon on an underground level for the simple fact that rap was getting dumber, and they were the last quote-unquote intelligent rap group. So what I'm beginning to wonder is that as that rise to being accepted into the Library of Congress, those conversations within popular culture were happening. Like, what is this? Who is this individual? Why are they rapping like this? They look like they're putting on a minstrel show. Everybody gets critiqued all the time. No one is safe from critique, but I'm sorry, that just unlocked a core memory when he asked that and you said that year, like, Jesus Christ.
I'll respond to another part of that in regards to failure, and I guess community-wise it depends on the semantics of how you're defining failure. You know, we're talking about a soundtrack also where if you look at that soundtrack, we have Angie Stone, we have Stevie Wonder, we have tracks that are written by Luther Vandross. This was the first time, other than like We Are the World, that you had the coalition of blacks coming together on an album soundtrack, you know, like this. And this is the only time I can think of that happening. I'm sure it's happening in other cases, and I just can't think of one.
It's kind of like how a lot of our classic hip hop albums
Wait,
failed
so
in
it's
reviews, and now they're cult classics. My bad.
I will give you Wait Next.
That counts.
That counts.
Patty Aretha, don't do that. Baby face.
That is true. We'll take these two thoughts here and here and there.
I just wanted to point out how what's my boy's name? Damon Wayans was completely goofy the whole movie, and they were holding back laughter like in the background scenes. But it was an art to the way it was shot, like almost like a Tubi movie for back then. He didn't spend so much time on the glamour of it because he knew it's not gonna pop in the movies. I feel like it was an art to it. He was almost on some trap shit for real. He was on some complete hood shit. Like, I'm going to just bogart you with the truth, and I know you're gonna laugh it off. So let me start Damon Wayans. Let me star Damon Wayans because y'all niggas not gonna get this no way. So let's just laugh about it because they laugh off black art and black paint anyways. So let's just laugh about it because y'all don't get it. We being bamboozled, you know.
It's also like it's kind of like Spike, kind of like, you know, clearly tricks the audience. Because the movie starts off with just so many jokes and just so over the top, and you know, Mike Rappaport's ridiculous, and you know, just so much comedy, and then it starts getting a little bit more real and a little bit more deep, and you know, like especially a scene where like Tommy Davidson's just like struggling to put on his like blackface, and like you start to get the feeling that okay, well things are not okay here, you know, as much as some things might be funny, as much as you know, Damon might be, you know, goofy as hell, like. You know, this is a very serious topic that he's like taking as much of a lighthearted look that you can look at something so serious as. So.
This is oh no, see, please, no, you go ahead.
I'm gonna say something real quick. I do want to push back. I don't know that Spike thought that people wouldn't get it. Like, I think there would be some people who would think it's funny, but then I think people who are into like black satire as a genre would get it. So like another film that might be adjacent to this is like Hollywood Shuffle, right? Robin Townsend's film. It's not exactly the same way, it's not as dark, but if you would have seen that, you would have gotten this. Or if you would have read Percival Everett's Erasure, which was just made into a film recently, if you saw the film American Fiction, which was about a black writer who's like, they only want ghetto fiction novels, so I'm gonna write one thinking it's gonna get trashed, and then they actually won it. So right, the novel that's based off came out before this, right? So I think the satire, like as a genre, is the key to whether or not audiences catch on to stuff.
I keep thinking about the success question also. This was a healing film for Spike Lee. He had said some inflammatory statements about the Wayne family. So this was a healing film in the sense that, and also some of the actors, if you go back and watch this, not everyone knew that he was going to act the role up the way he did. So they're cracking up. That's real time for him. Like when he was doing the reading room of this, it was more stoic. But when they did the filming of it, Spike gave him the invitation to dial it up as he saw fit. And this was an invitation for Spike Lee also to see his genius. I cannot think of the character's name. I know someone in here can correct me, but it was a Wayne character that he did on In Living Color, where there was, you know, 2 snaps and a twist.
Black men on film.
Yes, and Spike was livid about that particular portrayal. And he later apologized because he said he didn't see the genius of the family. So this film is a healing film for him. And I don't think we get an opportunity like that for many black men. And I just want to properly acknowledge that. I'll come here and then the closing statement here.
So, I was going to say the same thing because I remember there was a time when Spike and the Wayans brothers didn't get along. So I was around when this movie came out. Like I graduated, I was an adult. So, but the thing is, the minuscule things like Mo's, like Sarah Jones is in there, Lisa Jessie Peterson is in here. Lisa Jessie Peterson just did she's doing a play she did at Rikers Island. It's called The Peculiar Patriot. Like I think everybody was like so strategically placed for it to be a cult classic. You know what I mean? Because there's people from different genres all throughout that whole thing. I think Sarah Jones even, she's a theater person and she does all these multiple characters. Can't remember the name of her play. It was off-Broadway thing, but she plays Paul Mooney's girlfriend, the girl who's pouring him a drink.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's just little bitty things like how people are placed. That's all. That makes it a cult classic.
Thank you for that.
And Spike went to Morehouse, so yeah, that James Baldwin quote on purpose.
No, he asked the question I had.
Oh, yeah, your question. Okay. So like, just closing comments. Where can individuals find you, the work you're doing? You know, yes, I saw the look on your face. You're doing significant work. So I'll go ahead, I'll put in some selfish plugs really quick. This is a panel I'm hoping that will come back, these three individuals, specifically for a film that I think is in dialogue with this, a film that I know Spike Lee was riffing on. We're playing Blazing Saddles at some point. It's like, I wish you could see the nonverbals of everyone in the space.
It's been a while,
It is.
It's been a while since I've seen that one.
You know, wow, it's like, so we're gonna play it here. I'm hoping to have, you know, the three of our panelists here back to continue this dialogue, because I think that film is in direct dialogue with this for specific reasons if you see it. Clavon Little was brilliant in that film. It was a role that was initially going to be played by Richard Pryor, and Richard Pryor's life, I think in many ways, is predicated on the love of Paul Mooney.
Yeah.
So I wanted to thread that. So if you get a chance, please come back and join us for that. And also on Juneteenth, we're showing Summer of Soul, which is produced by Questlove, who was the roots in the band, was here in this. So I think there's 6 degrees of separation with this work that's taking place. But where can individuals find you?
Just on Instagram. I only got one social media account, and let's hope to God I actually post. I am King Carla everywhere. Cash at me right now. Thanks.
Reparations is real.
I'm gonna be that weird person that's like, don't find me on social media. Actually, just find me in the streets in Charlotte. I come here often. Also, two pieces that I think would be in good conversation with this: Langston Hughes, the Negro artist, and the Racial Mountain, and Tony K. Bumbar's Wild Black Cinema. And if you're interested in reading, I have copies in my bag just in case. That's better than finding me. You find them.
Randi, I want to throw out, would you be open to like a community dialogue on that? I think that text is brilliant. I don't know if a lot of people know that Baldwin did that work. So
I would love, The Devil Finds Work? Yeah, I would love to.
Yeah, I'll follow up on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so again, my name is Simon something, it's SMTHNG because I'm a millennial. And you can find me randomly DJing around Charlotte. I actually have a residency around the corner at the Soul Gastro Lounge on Sunday nights. And thank you all for being here.
Thank you everyone for coming
Thank
out.